Okay, so hi and good afternoon. I want to thank you first for being here today. So, my name is Siti Najla and I'll be your interviewer. Before we begin, can you please introduce yourself a bit, like telling about your name, age, where you are from, and what are you studying currently?
Okay, sure. So, hi, my name is Nimra, and right now I'm 26 years old, and I'm from Pakistan, Islamabad specifically, and I am studying right now. I'm studying PhD in business management. Yes, that's all.
Okay, so that sounds great. Nice to meet you, Nimra. So now let's move
Nice to
on. Okay, so now let's move on to the questions, shall we?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Firstly, let's talk about the history of English in your country. So, can you share a bit about how English was first introduced? Was it mainly through education or were there other influences?
Okay, so as you know, I'm from Pakistan, right? So before Pakistan was actually Pakistan, it was the subcontinent, India and Pakistan mixed, right? India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all three of these were the subcontinent. So the British actually ruled over the subcontinent, and that's how English had been introduced into the subcontinent through the influence of the British people. So as the Britishers were living in like harmony with people from Pakistan and India, all the Muslims and Hindus, so they actually influenced the people to speak more and more English. So in schools, there were like basics, normal schools that they had, the government schools, and they also had the British schools. So people who were well versed, they actually went to the British school, and moreover, people also found it like people who had money or people who had connections actually went to Britain to study, like to study more about law or even politics, because at that time politics and law were the main subjects that were taught readily everywhere. So yeah, that's how English had been introduced into the subcontinent. But nowadays, it has been very easy for people in Pakistan to speak English because it's like now it's not our national language, but it is the official language of Pakistan. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That is very insightful for me. So, over the years, like, how do you think the use of English has evolved in your country? Like, has it become more common in schools and social settings?
Yeah, it has become really common nowadays. People, especially in schools, children are taught English from like a very young age when they actually join a school and they start a kindergarten and first classes or second class. They're taught basic letters ABC from the start, and then they go on forward with it till the end. Especially the medium of instruction in the schools in Pakistan is actually English. Especially in universities, also the medium of instruction is English. But there are some universities and some colleges that are like government based and are in the rural areas of Pakistan. So there, not a lot of English has been spoken, but people can actually understand and speak it. So I think it has evolved a bit, even in social settings and even in the school settings in Pakistan. Overall, it is widely spoken and everyone can understand and actually answer you. If they cannot speak, they can actually understand it. Yes.
Oh, okay, okay. That is very interesting. So, next is like, do you think younger generations today are more comfortable using English compared to older generations? If so, why do you think that is the case?
Okay, so yeah, I think younger generation is more comfortable using English nowadays as compared to the older generation because English has become a widely used language in Pakistan during the recent years. I think it's starting from 2000s. It had become more common in Pakistan, whereas beforehand it was just treated as a language. Right, the English was just treated as another language that you should know about, and you should actually like for you to converse when it is needed, not on a daily basis. But nowadays, teenagers and even small children in Pakistan are basically communicating in English because the school work is in English. Wherever the friends they have, they speak English. But that also depends on the place that you're living in. If you're living in an urban city like Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, then it's actually modernized. So people actually do speak English there. But if you are talking about like the rural areas of Pakistan, like inside Punjab and inside Sindh, then not a lot of people over there readily speak English. The young generation do, but they don't find the need to do so. They actually speak in their mother tongue. But the older generation find it a bit odd. Like they don't find it a bit difficult. They just don't like speaking English a lot because they think that if they do, then they would be no different from all the other people who speak English. So they actually try to speak in their mother tongue. Either it's Punjabi, either it's Urdu, either it's Hindi or any other language. Yes.
Okay, okay. Okay, now let's discuss about the positive impacts. What are some of the biggest advantages of the increasing use of English in your country? Has it created more job opportunities or made communication with people from other countries easier?
Yeah, so both of these cases are true. Like it has also increased job opportunities, and it has also made communication with people from other countries easy. Nowadays, there are lots of companies from US, UK, Canada coming into Pakistan, and they are opening their branches here, and they're hiring people from Pakistan even. So that has been due to the like overuse of English in the country. People are actually comfortable speaking, and they are actually really involved in like learning English and speaking to other people, and they actually like communicating in English. So that has also like created many job opportunities. There are big companies like Motive that are working in Pakistan, and they are obviously all of them speak in English, and you have to deal with clients that are from the US, UK, Canada, and all. So yeah, job opportunities, yes, definitely. Moreover, it's also like the social setting has also improved. Pakistan social setting, it has also improved quite a lot because of the use of English and people knowing how to actually converse with each other. Yes.
Okay, so while English has so many benefits, like you just said, are there any negative effects that come with its increasing use in your country? Like, for example, do you think it might be replacing local languages or affecting cultural identity?
Okay, so I don't think that the increasing use of English will be replacing local languages because people actually English is being used in an official setting, like when you're working or when you're actually talking to someone from another country. But in our daily lives, we actually speak our local languages. Like in my daily life, I actually speak Urdu with my family, with my friends, or anyone else, right? So when I'm working, I actually shift to English. Otherwise, I basically speak my local language. So I don't think it will be replacing it anytime soon. But yeah, there are some negative effects. Like people actually, like if you're speaking English with your friends or in a normal setting, people think that oh he or she has become more westernized. They're losing their roots and all. Mostly the older generation, right? So they think that you're just portraying yourselves to be from another country, and also these are kind of the negative impacts, but they're just a little bit, not a lot. You can easily like overgo them, but maybe the older generation does think that Pakistan is becoming more westernized and like losing its roots, but I don't think that it's that way. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That is very important is perspective for me. So now, let's talk about let's talk a little about pronunciation and phonology. Are there any specific English sounds that people in your country find difficult to pronounce? Why do you think these sounds are challenging?
Okay, so it actually depends on where you are from, right? If you're belonging from Punjab, then people actually find it a bit difficult to like get the pronunciation right when you're actually talking about the like accents, right? The accents are the main thing here. I don't think there's much to pronunciation because people actually know how the phonetics and all of that because they actually teach that when you're a kid here in Pakistan. But I think it's basically the accents that are like difficult for us. So if you're talking about the UK accent, and people actually find it very difficult to understand the British and the Scottish accent. So if supposedly there's a big difference, like with how the UK pronounce water, how we pronounce water and they pronounce water. That's the basic example I can give you, right? So even if they're saying water, so people here they don't understand what they're asking for, right? But we just actually pronounce it as water, simple water. Every sentence, every letter is actually pronounced that way. It is said. But yeah, so I think the basic differences would be in accent, the UK accent, the British accent, and the American accent. People normally, we have grown and learned the British accent in school, right? Our studies are actually related to the British curriculum. But people who now watch movies and they converse with other friends and all actually adopt the American accent, right? So there is a bit of difficulty in that also with how the words are structured, right? Spellings, especially. There are some differences in the Z and S sounds, right?
Yeah.
So the Americans use S and the British use the Z sound. So that also makes a big difference here in Pakistan if you're using S or if you're using Z. Officially, we use Z in because the British use that, and generally we use the S when we're talking or when we're writing it down. So yeah, that's how things are here in Pakistan.
All right. So, do people from different regions of your country pronounce English words differently? Like, can you give some of the examples of regional accents or variations?
Okay, so yeah, I can give you some examples. Like I told you that people in Punjab, right? So I'll give you a basic example. Like it's like ice cream, right? So we say ice cream normally, right? But people from like the actual rural background areas from Punjab do not say ice. Ice, they cannot pronounce ice, right? So they say like s, right? So ice, instead of ice, they say as cream, not cream. Cream is also like cream is cream, right? But they don't say cream, they say cream. So like, yeah, so it's a big difference here when you say basic words like that. So yeah, that's one example I can easily give you.
Okay, that's really fascinating to know. So, like, what about differences between older and younger generations? Like, do they pronounce English words differently?
Okay, so I don't think there's a difference between the older and the younger generation while pronouncing the words, right? But there's just this difference of the accents I told you, British and the American, right? So the older generation, as they have lived and they have grown and all of that, so they were more exposed to the British style of English, this British accent. So they actually speak in that way and they actually pronounce words that way. But the younger generation, as they're more into movies, they're more into Netflix, and they're more into all of the other stuff. The American accent has taken over, and people use like the younger generation uses slang words like for real and what even and all of that. So the older generations, they don't get these words. They're like, what are you talking, what are you saying? So these are some of the examples. Yeah, the older generation actually speaks prim and proper English how it should be spoken. Yeah, but we just speak it in a way that just gets our point across, and we're just having fun and all. So yeah, those are the major differences. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, like, do people in your country sometimes mix the pronunciation of English and their native language in the same sentence? What do you think? Why do you think this happens?
Okay, so this is basically because I think this is basically because people do not use English a lot. Native people do not use English a lot. They use their native languages, which is Sindhi, Pashto, Punjabi, Urdu, right? So these are some of the basic languages that we have. There are more than that. There are like 80 plus languages spoken in Pakistan. But the basics that everyone knows are these three or four. So people actually generally use these native languages wherever they go, even when they're going out for shopping, even when they're with their friends or family or everyone else, right? So sometimes when they switch, right? Between English and Urdu and English and Punjabi and something like that. So that actually makes the whole sentence seem a bit weird, right? So if I mix Urdu with English, so I can easily, like, I'll give you a basic example, right? I know you won't understand Urdu, but I'll just give you a basic example. So like अगर मैं उर्दू में बोलूँ and I speak in Urdu, so these are the things that तो आपको ये नहीं समझ आएगी कि मैं क्या कह रही हूँ, right? So you wouldn't understand what I'm saying. So the thing is that when people actually right now, even if I was speaking to you, I was actually inclined to say some words in Urdu while I was speaking to you, but I stopped myself. So these are some of the few things that actually do happen here in Pakistan, and that is because people actually don't use English that much. Only when they're in the official settings. As I told you, it's the official language of Pakistan. So mixing up is very common here. They actually mix Urdu and English a lot, even when we're in official settings. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, for the last question, let's talk about y'all's intonation. Like, how does the intonation, like rise and fall of the voice in English spoken in your country, different from that of English native speakers?
Okay, yeah, so that is a little bit different. It is a little bit different, and I think that's how accents are actually made, right? So, right now, I think people in Pakistan don't actually classify as having any accent as like UK or British, we're somewhere in the middle. So the rise and fall of speech intonation, it actually depends on how you actually learn English, right? Or how you have grown and spoken it. So if you're from the Punjab and you're speaking Punjabi, Punjabi is like a very loud language, right? So when you're speaking Punjabi, you're actually, and if you speak English in that way, the English also becomes a bit loud and a bit really, like you can say outrageous if you're there speaking it in that way. But if you're from the Pashtun province, right? So the Pashto language is a bit similar to Arabic and Persian and all of those other languages, right? So if Pashto speaking people speak English, they actually speak in a nice accent, which is different from what people in Punjab speak with. Right, their intonation, the rise and fall of their speech is actually comparable to the British people. Right, they actually have that same accent. So yeah, that also depends on like mother tongue, which is Pashto, right? Their language. So if you do a bit research about Pashto, you'll come to know that it's actually a really old language. So when they speak, their rise and fall is as comparable to the ones as Britishers do. But if people from like Punjab and Sindh, like Karachi, Islamabad, Lahore, when we speak, it's basically a normal language. We like speak in a way that we want to, right? Our rise and fall of words is as we want them to be, not as it should be, or it should like be as in grammar or how the word should be spelled or pronounced or said, right? So it's just our own way of communicating. But when there's this difference that we have in people from different regions of Pakistan, like especially the KPK region and the Punjab region. Yeah, so that's how it made a difference in donation and sounds.
Okay, so that's all. That was a very insightful discussion. So,
Thank you.
okay, so thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts and experiences with me today. I really appreciate your time. So, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, there's not much that I would like to add. I just want to say thank you for choosing me for your interview, and I had a really nice discussion with you. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, that's wonderful. Once again, thank you for your time. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Okay, bye. Hello everyone, I'm Siti Najla from DEC5B, and in this video, my groupmate Sarah, Khadijah and I will be presenting our findings on varieties of English in the outer and expanding circles based on Carter's three circle model. We will be looking at two countries, Pakistan for the outer circle and Spain for the expanding circle. For this project, we conducted interviews with individuals from these countries to see whether their experiences align with or contradict existing research on English varieties. Now, let's start with my part of the presentation, which focuses on Pakistan, a country in the outer circle. Hi again everyone, I'm Siti Najla binti Muhammad Jamil with ID number SEC 2070047 and I was the interviewer one for this study. I interviewed Ms. Nimra, a 26 years old PhD student in business management from Islamabad, Pakistan. Through our discussion, we explored how English is used in Pakistan, its development over the years, its impact on different generations, and the challenges people face when speaking it. First of all, to understand the role of English in Pakistan today, I asked Ms. Nimra about its history. She explained that before Pakistan became independent, it was part of British India. During British rule, English was introduced as the language of governance, education, and law. There were two types of schools at the time. First is government schools where students were taught in local languages like Urdu and Punjabi. Second is British-run schools, where English was the main language and only the elite could afford to attend. Those who had money or political connections often went to Britain for higher education, especially in law and politics, since these were the key areas controlled by the British. After Pakistan gained independence in 1947, English remained an official language alongside Urdu. Today, it is still widely used in government, business, and education, showing that its influence didn't fade after the British left. Moreover, English remained in Pakistan due to its role in governance and administration. The increasing need for English in international business, science, and diplomacy has kept its importance strong. English is also seen as the language of success, giving people access to higher education and better jobs. Next, I asked Ms. Nimra how English has evolved in Pakistan. She confirmed that it has become much more common over the years, particularly in education, such as children start learning English in kindergarten, beginning with the alphabet and basic words. Most schools also use English as the primary language of instruction, especially in urban areas. Universities conduct lectures in English, particularly in professional and technical courses. However, there is a major difference between urban and rural areas. In cities like Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi, English is widely spoken in schools, workplaces, and even in casual conversations. In rural areas, English is understood but not commonly spoken. Some government schools in these areas do not emphasize English as much, so students rely more on their native languages. Overall, English has become more accessible, but the gap between urban and rural areas still exists. Cities have better English education, but rural areas are catching up. English also is the dominant language in schools and universities. Being exposed to TV shows, movies, and social media is making English more common in daily life. Then, I also asked Ms. Nimra whether younger generations are more comfortable using English compared to older generations. She strongly agreed. Younger people, especially students and professionals, speak English fluently because they grew up studying in English medium schools. Teenagers and young adults use English casually with friends, mixing it with Urdu. Older generations, however, prefer speaking in their native languages and only use English in formal situations. This also depends on the location. In big cities, young people speak English frequently, especially in academic and work settings. In rural areas, young people understand English but prefer their native language unless necessary. Interestingly, some older people resist speaking English because they feel it is a symbol of Western influence, which they believe threatens their cultural identity. Due to this, younger generations are more fluent due to education and media exposure. Older generations see English as formal, while younger people use it more casually. Some older people feel speaking too much English as losing cultural roots. Furthermore, Ms. Nimra also talked about the positive effects of English in Pakistan. She highlighted that English has created job opportunities and made global communication easier. Multinational companies from the US, UK, and Canada have set up offices in Pakistan. They need employees who can communicate in English to create more high paying jobs. English allows Pakistanis to work in international industries, including IT, customer service, and freelancing. It has also improved social interactions, making it easier for people to connect with friends, businesses, and universities worldwide. Because of these advantages, English continues to grow in importance in Pakistan. We can see that fluency in English increases chances of working in multinational companies. English also helps businesses and students connect internationally. Speaking English is often seen as a symbol of education and success. And of course, not everyone is happy with the increasing use of English. I asked Miss Nimra if she thought English might replace local languages or affect cultural identity. She doesn't believe English will replace native languages because people still speak Urdu, Punjabi, and other languages at home. However, some older generations feel that using English too much is a sign of westernization and losing Pakistani culture. English creates a social divide where people who speak fluently are seen as more educated, while those who struggle with English may feel left out. This highlights a cultural conflict between embracing English for progress and preserving traditional languages and identity. Through this, English isn't replacing native languages, but code switching is common. Older generations see English as Western influence, while young people see it as a necessity. Speaking fluent English is sometimes linked to higher social status. Now, let's talk a little about pronunciation and phonology in Pakistan. I asked Miss Nimra if there are any specific English sounds that people in her country find difficult to pronounce and why. Her response was quite interesting. She explained that pronunciation itself isn't the main challenge. People in Pakistan generally learn phonetics in school from a young age. Instead, the real struggle comes from adapting to different English accents, such as British, American, and Scottish accents. One major issue is understanding foreign accents. For example, the British pronunciation of the word water, which sounds like water, is difficult for many Pakistanis. In contrast, the way they pronounce it locally is closer to water, which each letter clearly pronounced. This difference can lead to confusions in conversations. Another key point is the influence of British and American English. Due to Pakistan's colonial history, the school system follows British English standards. However, younger generations are more exposed to American English through movies, TV shows, and social media. This has created a mix of British and American influences in pronunciation and spelling. For example, while British spelling uses words like realize with an S, American spelling prefers realize with a Z. So, why are these pronunciation challenges so common? Native languages like Urdu and Punjabi have sounds that don't always match English phonetics. Many people don't hear native English speakers regularly, making it harder to adapt to foreign accents. Although English is taught in school, spoken practice and exposure to different accents remain limited. Likewise, I asked Ms. Nimra if people from different regions in Pakistan pronounce English words differently, and she confirmed that they do. For example, she mentioned that the word ice cream. In standard English pronunciation, it is simply ice cream. However, in rural Punjab, some people pronounce as cream. Ice become S because the AI diphthong sound is difficult for some speakers. Cream becomes cream, influenced by their native phonetics. Different regional languages affect English pronunciation in unique ways. For example, Punjabi speakers have a strong and direct pronunciation style. Sindhi speakers often swap V and W sounds, so very might sound very. Pashto speakers have a more rhythmic speech pattern influenced by Arabic and Persian. In rural areas, English is often learned through writing rather than speaking, which affects pronunciation.
I can give you some examples. Like I told you that people in Punjab, right? So I'll give you a basic example. Like it's like ice cream, right? So we say ice cream normally, right? But people from like the actual rural background areas from Punjab do not say ice. Ice they cannot pronounce ice, right? So they say like uh, s, right? So ice instead of ice they say as cream, not cream. Cream is also like cream is cream, right? But they don't say cream. They say cream. So like yeah, so it's a big difference here when you say basic words like that. So yeah, that's one example I can easily give you.
Next, I asked Miss Nimra whether older and younger generations pronounce English words differently. She explained that the biggest difference isn't pronunciation, but accents and word choices. Older generations were more exposed to British English during their education and tend to pronounce words in a more formal British way. Younger generations, however, are influenced by American media, Netflix, and social media, so their accent is shifting towards American English. Slang words are another big difference. Younger people use phrases like for real and what even, which older generations don't understand. An example of this difference is the word schedule. Older generation pronounce it as schedule, but younger generation pronounce it as schedule. This shift shows how globalization and media exposure are changing the way Pakistanis speak English. We can see that older generations prefer British English while younger generations lean towards American English. The influence of movies, social media, and pop culture is shaping pronunciation and vocabulary. English slang creates a gap between generations but also adds to language evolution. Besides, I also asked Miss Nimra if people in Pakistan mix English and their native language when speaking. Her response? Yes, all the time. This is called code switching, and it happens because English is mainly used in professional and academic settings, but not in daily life. People switch between English and Urdu or Punjabi depending on the situation. Certain English words have no direct translation in Urdu, so people just use them instead. For example, someone might say, Yo, I need to finish this assignment today, mixing Urdu and English. Even in official meetings, people start in English, but naturally slip into Urdu because it feels more comfortable. While code switching helps bridge language gaps, it can also make it difficult for some people to speak in full English sentences without mixing languages. So, through this, English is not replacing native languages, but it is blending with them. Code switching is a natural part of how Pakistanis use English in daily life. Another interesting aspect I discussed with Ms. Nimra was intonation, the rise and fall of the voice when speaking. She explained that intonation varies across Pakistan depending on the speaker's native language. Punjabi speakers have a naturally loud and forceful intonation, so the English can sound strong and direct. Pashto speakers influenced by Arabic and Persian, tend to have a smooth and rhythmic intonation, which sounds closer to British English. Urdu speakers have a neutral poetic tone, making the English pronunciation more balanced. One challenge is that Pakistani schools focus on grammar and vocabulary, but not on pronunciation or intonation, which can make speech sound unnatural. To improve this, Ms. Nimra suggested that listening to native speakers through TED Talks, audiobooks, and media can help. This way, intonation in Pakistani English is influenced by native languages. School focus on grammar, but pronunciation and speech rhythm need more attention. Exposure to native English speakers can improve natural speech patterns. Now, let's look at why English spread in Pakistan. Pakistan falls under culture's outer circle, meaning English is widely used as a second language in education, business, and government. This comes from British colonial influence, where English remained the language of law, administration, and higher education even after independence. However, globalization has changed how English is spoken. While schools teach British English, younger generations are more exposed to American English through movies, social media, and even pop culture. This has led to a mix of British and American English in pronunciation, spelling, and vocabulary. Globalization has made English essential in Pakistan, especially in business, technology, and education. Many professionals use English daily to connect with international markets and study abroad. Pakistanis often code switch between English and Urdu, adapting English to their own style. Since they interact with both native and non native speakers, English works as a lingua franca, helping them communicate globally. Overall, English in Pakistan is shaped by history, media, and global influence, making it a key tool for success. So that concludes my individual presentation on English in Pakistan and outer circle country. Thank you so much for listening. Now, I'll hand it over to Sarah Khadijah, who will discuss English in Spain and expanding circle country.
Good
Okay.
afternoon and welcome to today's discussion on the growing presence of the English language in Spain. So we are joined by Ana Rosalie, if that is how to pronounce it.
Yes, yes,
All right.
yes.
So she will provide us with valuable insights on this topic. So thank you for being here with me, Anna. Okay. To start, can you share a bit about how English was first introduced in Spain? Was it mainly through education, tourism, or other influences?
I believe that in Spain there is a country that has a lot of tourism. So a part of the English language is thanks to tourism, but also education needs a lot of English. Like every children knows English because it's really important. So when we finish like high education, everybody has B2 level of English,
Oh,
more or less. So people talks English, but I believe that is really similar to Spanish or more or less. So it's difficult, but not that much as you because I think it's more different Malaysian than English than Spain and English. I think so. Could be.
so you say that almost every people here has B2 level of English?
Yes, like people from young people like me, like maybe this generation more or less, they know English like well. Maybe other people like my grandparents, maybe they don't know as much English, but then my parent generation, I think that half of the people knows English very well, and then young people knows English. I
Oh,
think so. maybe it can be an exception, but more or less people knows how to talk English because it's something that it in when you go to school there are so many hours of English, so you have to learn it.
Ah, I see. So, okay, moving on to the next question. Um, so over the years, how has the use of English evolved in Spain? Like, do you notice any significant changes in schools, your workplace, or social settings?
I think that schools have add more hours of English. Like younger children, they do more hours per week of English, and older people not that much. But as I said, young people in general they know how to talk in English more or less quite good. And as time to go, like older people knows a little bit less, but I think that everybody knows. And the change that I think that they have done, maybe there are TV programs that people used to see in English or things like that, so that helps a lot. But I think that putting more hours in the school schedule, so children learn more English since they are kids, like they have maybe 3 years and they do 5 or hours of English per week or more or less, and then you will increase. Maybe when I was 12, I did 10 or 12 hours of English and only 4 of Spanish. So like because Spanish and Catalan that are the languages that we talk in Barcelona, we know it because it's our language. So we do more English. Like maybe in my school, for example, we did science in English, so we can improve, history in English, so we can improve, and then English. So we only did in Spanish or Catalan, maths, Catalan, Spanish, and I don't know, but the teachers try to do their best so we can learn English because it's the future.
Well, I see the effort there. Like the 12 hours is so much. It's almost half of your time there. Okay.
Yes, they try it too. But it's depending also of the school, maybe because in Spain there are public schools. In Malaysia too, like people don't have to pay for school, and then there are like middle school that government pays the half, and then the parents the other half, and then are private schools that parents pay everything. So it depends a little bit also of the level of the school you go, but majority everybody does English and a lot of hours because people need to know English.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay, next I will ask about, do you think that the younger generation are more comfortable using English compared to the older generation?
Yes, I think so. I think that younger people is okay talking in English and they have fluency and have no much problem. Maybe other people is difficult because in their times they didn't have the facilities we have now, so they don't know how to pronounce it that well, or they don't have that fluency, or they haven't been able to practice that much, or maybe they haven't had the opportunity to travel to England or America or places like that where they are natives. So I think that this is the thing because they don't know that much English. But yes, I think that there has been an evolution, and younger people is more comfortable. But as I said, like my parent generation, that they are maybe 50, they talk in English.
What are some of the biggest advantage of the increasing use of English in Spain?
I believe that one of the best advantages is like we can be now here talking and we are you in one side of the world and me in the other side and we can speak. So I think this is crazy. I love this. So I think that this is the advantage. I think, and then understanding like you can access to everything. And if you go like in the science world, there are lots of things and studies and everything is on English in English. So if you know English, you can understand lots of things and search things that if you only know Spanish can be more difficult. Or maybe, for example, when I went to China this summer,
Uh-huh.
everything was in Chinese, but if there was something in other languages, it was English. So it was like really important to know English because my parents know English. So because of that, I can go to China this summer with them.
Uh-huh.
But if not, it would be really difficult because book hotels, flights, and everything in China is so difficult. So thanks to English, we can do that. If not, it would be really difficult because I have some friends that their parents don't speak like English that well, and they say it's difficult to me to travel to places that they don't have like everything that easy. Like maybe if you go to America, there is a lot of tourism, so everything is more adapted to other people. But in China, I think it's difficult to do tourism because it's not that easy everything. Like you have to search a lot of things, and if you don't know English, I believe it's really difficult.
I agree. I think English has become like a part of our life. Like you say just now, it make our life easier because
Yes,
especially in tourism. If not, it is hard to travel. Okay.
yes, yes.
All right. Moving on to the next question. While English has many benefits, are there any negative effects that come with its growing presence? Like, for example, do you think that it might be replacing the local language or if affecting the cultural identity?
In my case, I don't think so because people is always like more comfortable like speaking their native language. So if I am speaking with someone from Spain, I speak Catalan or Spanish. You know that I live in Barcelona, so here we talk Catalan. But I don't think it's replacing our language. Maybe culture, I don't think so. But now in Spain, we celebrate Halloween or
Oh,
or maybe San Valentine's that it was yesterday.
uh-huh.
Like here is not typical because it's something from America and
Mhm.
it has come here. But in the same day, we have other traditions. For example, in Halloween here we celebrate like the Day of the Dead, but not like in Mexico, different a different way. But now is we always celebrate the Day of the Dead and also Halloween, so it's a little like weird.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yes, I think that it's okay to mix things and make more parties and and make everything bigger. So if we can export cultures and festivities and things like that, I think it's okay. But I don't think it's going to replace anything. So I will say that it's a huge advantage to talk English, and I don't see negative things about
Oh,
English.
I
What do
see.
you think? It is in Malaysia too, or it is replacing local language?
I think most of the platform here, like we also include English a little bit in our daily conversation. Like we combine Malay plus English, so it become English. I agree that
Okay.
part with you that it does not, but at the same time, it also does not replace our culture. So I agree with you with that point.
In Spain now, like when people just talk in Spanish, they talk in Spanish. Maybe it could be like some words, but not many. Like maybe parking, like when you park the car, like we also say parking, and there is a word in Spanish to say parking, like it's garaje, but we usually say parking. Or maybe some words, but not many. Like people when they talk Spanish, they talk Spanish. Maybe it could be because not everybody knows English, so maybe not everybody would understand. But in young generations, everybody knows English, and people doesn't use English. So we don't like mix
Oh,
languages.
are there any specific English sound that people in Spain find it difficult to pronounce?
I was thinking about it because when I read the questions, I said I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't think so because I think that Spanish has like more difficult tones that English. I think that English is more easier than Spanish because English has no verbal conjugations. Like in Spain, when you say I and then the
Uh-huh.
verb, it finish in a specific way. And then when you say you, then finish in another way, and you say they and another way, us another way. So every verb ends different if it's talking me, you, or they, or us, or everything. So I think Spanish is quite difficult in that way, and English has no verbal conjugations, and English is not that difficult. And then the tones, as you said, I don't believe there is some tones that is more difficult. Maybe these words like comfortable, I don't know how to say comfortable, this maybe, but the tones or the sound, I don't think, because in Spanish we have like the R, we have two R, like
Okay.
in English you have one R, or in Spanish you have sometimes one or sometimes two, and then it's difficult because you say ro. And for a lot of people say ro is difficult because it's really you have to do a lot of
Well,
like you have to put the tongue behind and things difficult.
uh-huh.
So maybe it's difficult, but I don't vice versa. I don't think so.
Okay, so you think that there are no hard word to pronounce in English?
No, I think that for people from here, it's like quite easy to pronounce.
Oh,
Like, of course, English native is like difficult because you have not the same accent, but the tones or the sounds,
uh-huh.
I think it's like so difficult.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, the accent is difficult because we don't have the accent because we don't live there, or I don't speak with native people. So when you talk with, it's more easier for me to understand English when I talk with an Italian
Mhm.
person, because we both has like English but not native English, so it's easier for me to understand an Italian or a French talking in English, or a German person talking in English to me, than talking in English with a native, because they has an English not that, I don't know how to say that accent. So I think that, I don't know.
So it okay, do people from different region of Spain pronounce English word differently? Like, could you give any example?
I think that Spanish like is small comparing to other countries. So I don't think that is that difference, because inside of Spain people talk Spanish really different. Like in the south of Spain they talk totally different. You understand each other, but it's difficult from someone that is learning Spanish from Madrid, that is the capital of Spain. It's really different from south. I understand because I talk Spanish like my native language, but for people from outside, I can believe that south accent is difficult. But in terms of English, I don't think so. There's quite difference, because everybody learns the same English at school,
Oh,
and it's small. So I don't think there is so much difference between English. Like, this summer I went to China, but 2 summers ago I went to Brighton in the UK, and there I met like a lot of people. But I also met people from Spain and from different places of Spain, and more or less everybody talks English like the same. You know.
so there are no
So no, I
different.
don't think there's difference in English.
Oh, okay, it's almost the same in Spain because the country is small.
I believe so, but between, maybe when I went to Brighton, I talked with people from Germany and Denmark, like it's Europe, and maybe they talk a little bit different because their native language was German. So maybe some tones or some things not that similar to me.
Okay, is there a noticeable difference in pronunciation between the older and the younger generation when speaking English?
Yes, I think so. Like older generations, their pronunciation is not that good, I believe, because they didn't have the opportunity to travel that much, or to listen so much conversations. Because actually, nowadays, people can open Netflix or Google or wherever, and they can listen like native English. So younger people, maybe they look podcasts, program TVs or things like that. So they learn a lot of English and their accents. That I think that is difficult, because it's the most important from the language, like talk as a native. And I think that that is really easy if you can always listen people that has the good accent, and older people didn't have these opportunities or these facilities to always listen native people, and nowadays we can do it. So I think that yes, the pronunciation is so different, because maybe older people like my parents know how to speak English but don't have that good pronunciation as younger people has. Like maybe I have me no, but I have friends that has like incredible pronunciation that it seems like they are American, and I told them, why you speak like so good English? And they told me, when I was children I always saw like TV in English or things like that. And I think that it's a great option if you have kids or something, to put them the TV in English so they listen that accent and then they talk like native.
Wow, incredible. So younger people has a lot more access than older people. Okay.
Yes,
Do people in Spain sometimes mix the pronunciation of English and their
and
native
Spanish.
language in the same sentence?
Mm, I don't think so, because like we don't mix the two languages. So no, I don't think that people mix. Maybe in one sentence, but it's not popular. Like people or talks English or Spanish or Catalan, but not mix. No, people doesn't just to do it.
Oh, okay. So I can assume that the Spain people hold a strong belief on their culture.
Yes, maybe in a future people start to mix. I don't know, but actually, as not everybody knows English, people doesn't mix. But I also think that they are really different languages, so there is no like the possibility of mix.
Okay, okay, I see. So, how does the intonation of English spoken in Spain different from the native English speaker?
Do you mean if it's really different?
Like in terms of the intonation, uh,
Yes.
is it different if the people in Spain speak English than
Oh,
the native speaker?
I'm not that sure because I think that it depends on the person a lot.
Uh-huh.
But yes, I suppose intonation could be a little bit different. So because of that, I think that we should like listen a lot of shows or TV programs or things like that to understand their intonation. Because I think that it's really different. Yeah, like in Spain, depending on the place of Spain you live, you use different intonation talking Spanish. Like maybe South people, like when they talk, maybe it seems that they are like singing, not that singing, but more fluently, like they seem more happy, and then maybe in the capital they seem not that happy from the intonation and all that. So I think that it depends on the person and where did you learn English and all that stuff.
Like, do Spain people have any a habit on their own? Like, for example, Chinese people in Malaysia speak with a slang at the end of English sentence, like, "Why don't you go there, lah?" They will add lah. So
Huh.
for Spain, do you have any habit when speaking English? Like, will you add on something of the term?
Not that much because in Spain I don't think that there are so mix of people, because I think I know that in Malaysia there are Chinese people, Malaysian people, there are like very lots of different people and cultures. In Spain I believe it's like little, so I believe it's only Spanish people and it's not that mixed. So no, I don't believe there are slangs from English or whatever.
Or they keep it separate? Okay.
Yes.
Quite interesting insight that I have there. So this has been a very fascinating discussion for me. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thought on the future of English in Spain?
Okay, I think that English is extremely important. It's the best of everything. Like we need English for everything. And in Spain, we have a lot of tourism because of the good weather. So lots of people from Europe come to Spain and we communicate in English. So I think that for Spain is crucial to talk English. And then I think that English to communicate with people from around the world is incredibly good. And for the brain is always perfect to know more language. So you train our brains. So I think that we should learn English, always earn as much language as we can.
So thank you again for your time and insights. This is a very enlightening conversation. Well, I gained a lot actually. And that concludes our discussion on English expansion in Spain.
Okay.
Thank you, Siti Najla. Now I will continue the topic on English expansion in Spain, which is an expanding circle country. First of all, Assalamualaikum, and my name is Sarah Khadijah binti Muhammad Shahril with ID number SEC230700045. Let me introduce you to my interviewee, which is Ana Rosette Rosales, who is an 18 years old girl from Barcelona, Spain. She pursued her study in chemical engineering in Catalonia University. First of all, Spain is considered to be in the expanding circle because English is primarily learned as a foreign language in the country. Question one. So what I find is that English was first introduced through two ways. The first one is the role of tourism, and the second one is the role of education.
So Spain is a major tourist destination, attracting visitors from English-speaking countries like America. So this implement the need to communicate with tourists, which make it more common, especially in popular tourist area, to use English language. Second, the role of education. So English is a core subject in school. The Spanish education system ensures that every child learn English from a young age. So by the time the student finish high school, most of them has at least a B2 level of English, which is the upper intermediate proficiency. But there is also a generational differences in terms of English proficiency. Like Anna mentioned just now, the younger generation, which is her generation, generally speak English very well. Compared to the middle-aged adults, which is the parents' generation, only half of them are proficient in English, while the older generation, which is the grandparents, many of them do not speak English at all. Lastly, the speakers believe that Spanish and English share the same similarities, which make it English more easier to learn compared to languages like Malaysian. Based on her experience when she was 12, she did a 10 or 12 hours of English per day and only 4 hours for Spanish learning. The subject that they use English include science, and the teacher in her school also had to work hard to learn English to teach the subject in English as a tutor. So what we can find here is that the English has evolved through increased English hours in schools. So the younger children there have more hours of English per week compared to older generation. Schools also have added more English lessons to help students become more comfortable with the language. Second, the usage of English in school subjects. So some schools, including the speakers schools, teach subjects like science and history in English. These help a lot to improve their English naturally while learning other subjects. So Spanish and despite that, Spanish and Catalan remain the main language for certain subjects like math. So the third thing that I want to mention is that the influence of media and social setting. So the TV shows, online content, and program that available in English contribute a lot in language learning. Lastly, the teachers' effort in English education. The teachers actively try to improve English education by integrating more English info lessons. So the speaker mentioned that a tutor who is dedicated to help students learn English more effectively. Now we will explore the compatibility of each generation in using English. So our finding is that the younger generation are more comfortable than the older generation. It can be proved by the increased fluency among younger generation. We can see that they speak English with greater ease and face fewer difficulties in terms of pronunciation and communication, while the older generation face a bigger challenges. The older people struggle more due to fewer learning resources when they were younger, and this contribute to less opportunity to practice English as travel is less accessible, and this make it hard for them to communicate with native speakers. As a result, many older Spaniards lack fluency and proper pronunciation. So this could shift to the role of modern facilities and exposure. So the speaker highlight that our younger generation benefits from greater access to learning tools. For example, the online resources like Netflix, YouTube, podcasts, and apps, which open the path to learn English in a much easier way. So What we can suggest is that more English-focused education in schools need to be implemented to make it and thus easier travel opportunities to English-speaking countries. Has been a since English usage is increasing rapidly in other countries in Spain, so we want to dive into its benefit that it gives. First of all, in terms of global communication and connectivity, the speaker finds it amazing that people from different parts of the world can communicate in English, enabling a natural international conversation. So this remove language barrier and allow people in Spain to connect with others worldwide. Next, more access to information and scientific knowledge. So the speaker emphasized that many scientific studies and global resources are in English. So knowing the English make it easier to research and learn new things, especially in fields like science and technology. Those who only speak Spanish only have limited access to international knowledge. So English also has become a key tool for travel. She shared a personal experience from visiting China when English was crucial for navigating in the country. If not, she would be lost. In countries where Spanish is not widely spoken, English becomes the default language for booking hotels, flights, and general communication. For those who don't speak English, they might find that traveling to non-Spanish speaking countries more challenging. Another advantage is that more job opportunities and economic impact. Many global companies require English proficiency nowadays, making it an advantage for Spanish job seekers. In industries like tourism, business, and science, English is a necessity for international collaboration. We have talked a lot about benefit of English in Spain. Does it have a negative impact? Well, from what I get from Anna, there are no negative impact detected, and it does not replace the local language and affecting the cultural identity. So the speaker emphasized that the people in Spain prefer speaking in Spanish or Catalan in daily interaction. So this suggests that English is seen as a useful tool rather than a threat in linguistic identity. The speaker also acknowledged that the American holidays like Halloween and Valentine's Day are becoming more common in Spain. However, these important festivities coexist with local tradition like Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. Instead of viewing these influences as a loss of cultural identity, the speaker sees cultural blending as enriching, which create more opportunities to celebrate and enhance social life. So this could reflect a more inclusive and flexible attitude toward cultural exchange. Well, are there any difficult words that Spain people find it hard to pronounce? The speaker initially suggests that Spanish speakers do not face major difficulties in English pronunciation, but later acknowledged that some words like comfortable might be tricky. However, in linguistic studies, certain English sounds are indeed difficult for Spanish speakers. These include the V and V distinction. Spanish speakers often pronounce them similarly because Spanish does not differentiate between the two as clearly as English does, the V and the B. Well, in terms of English and Spanish grammar complexity, Spanish is more difficult than English, particularly in terms of conjugations. So English verb has fewer conjugation like I speak, you speak, they speak. Only he, she speaks and on as. In terms of phonetics differences and the perspective of difficulty, English is much easier because it has the simpler verb conjugation. However, the pronunciation challenges still exist in both sides. For Spanish, Spanish has rule are like and different vowel sound, while English has a complex vowel combination and silent letters like comfortable. But the conclusion that we get from here is that Spanish speakers does not struggle with English pronunciation as much as vice versa, but they do face specific challenges with certain sounds. So the speaker correctly identifies verb conjugation as significant difficulty in Spanish, which make English an easier aspect. However, it still depends on the learner exposure and native phonetic system for the difficulties. Now, the different region have different accent. Let's dive into it. So, what Anna said is that Spain has regional accent in Spanish, make it challenging for the non-native learners. So the speaker highlighted. So she highlighted the southern Spain, Andalusia has a very different accent compared to Madrid, which they refer to moderate. So the finding is that Spaniards speak English in a uniform way because they learn it through formal education. While this is somewhat true, but the minor regional influences can still be observed in English pronunciation among Spaniards. So Andalusians may carry their habit of dropping final consonants. For Catalan and Galician, speakers may have a slightly different vowel pronunciation influenced by their native language. Based on her personal experience, the speaker supports their argument with personal anecdote from meeting another Spaniard in Britain and observed that their English accents are quite similar. So this aligns with the idea that a formal education and media exposure lead to a more uniform English pronunciation across Spain. This is the proof that the English pronunciation among Spaniards are relatively consistent due to the standardized education. However, minor regional influences still present, especially among speakers with a strong local accent in their native Spanish. Is there a difference in terms of pronunciation between the younger people and the older people? Let's check this. So the younger Spaniard has better pronunciation than the older generation due to social media exposure. The younger people have an easier access like Netflix, YouTube, podcast, and social media, which allow them to hear native English more frequently. And this exposure helped them to develop a more natural accent and improve listening comprehension. While the older generation do not have the same opportunity as they lack widespread internet access and international travel options when they were younger. We can view it also from the impact of the informal education. English education in Spain has improved over the years. Therefore, this emphasizes more on pronunciation and communication skills. In contrast, the older generation has learned English in a grammar-focused manner, leading to a stronger reading and writing skills, but weaker speaking abilities. But this can also be due to by the early language exposure could be one of the factors too. The speaker shared that her friend with near native pronunciation because they grew up watching TV in English. So this aligns with language acquisition research, which suggests that early exposure to language improve pronunciation and fluency. Lastly, the parent also play a role in it. She suggests that the parents should expose their children to English media from a young age to help them develop a native like accent. This could reflect on the growing awareness in Spain in terms of importance of bilingualism and pronunciation training. So do they mix? English and Spanish in one sentence? No. Based on Anna, Spanish speakers in Spain do not commonly mix English and Spanish pronunciation within one sentence. People in Spain usually speak either English or Spanish or Catalan separately without mixing them. So not everyone in Spain could speak English fluently, which make mixed language speech less common. But even if full sentences are mixed, Spanish phonetic often influence English pronunciation among the Spanish speaker. Like pronouncing comfortable, they pronounce it as comfortable. This shows that Spanish phonetics can affect spoken English. When the mixing might occur, well, she claimed that mixing is very rare. Some situations can lead to occasional word switching or borrow English word, like for example in professional or academic setting. People might insert English term like marketing, email, or startup into English speech. Finally, we are going to the last question, which is how does the intonation in English spoken in Spain different from the native English speakers? So in terms of differences, English intonation patterns involve a natural rise and fall, like rising in that. For example, they would use rising intonation in question like "Are you humming?" So English often stress on the word like emotion. Are you sad? While in Spanish, on the other hand, has a flatter intonation with some regional variation. So this regional variation affect Spanish intonation. So the speaker note that Anna note that within Spain, intonation are different based on region. Like Andalusia have a more musical, fluid intonation, which might make the speech more rhythmic. But for Madrid speakers, on the other hand, have a more neutral and serious sounding intonation. But it also depends on a Spaniard learning environment, like the exposure of the TV shows or travel. Higher the exposure, the more natural you might develop for the intonation. Lastly, the Spanish people may struggle with flat or monotone intonation instead of the natural English that has rise and fall. Like they may have incorrect question intonation, like using downward pitch instead of upward in yes or no fashions. So placing the stress incorrectly may affect the meaning, like important versus important. Based on all the question, we can conclude that the spread of English in Spain has been influenced by tourism, education, and globalization. While Spain was never under British rule, English has grown in importance over time, particularly for business, travel, and international communication. Today, it is widely taught in schools and serves as an essential skill for career advancement and global opportunities. But for in modern times, English has become more necessary, especially with increased exposure to international media and the internet. Many Spanish schools have integrated English in their curriculum, and sometimes using it as the main language for instruction for subjects like science and history. Therefore, fluency in English is quite crucial for better job prospect, particularly in multinational company. And of course, the tourism industry. As foreign business from the US, UK, and other English-speaking companies, this has made English an important tool for economic and professional growth, particularly in urban areas where global business and connections are strongest. Since English plays an important role in Spain, particularly in bridging communication gaps between the Spaniards and the international visitors or businesses, although Spanish is the dominant language, English serves as a crucial tool for connecting with people worldwide, especially in tourism and business sectors. However, its use in daily use varies. In urban areas like Madrid and Barcelona, a younger generation are more likely to speak English fluently due to increased exposure through education, travel, and media. While in smaller towns and rural areas, people are less likely to use English regularly. Despite its growing presence, English is still not seen as replacement for Spanish for regional language like Catalan and Basque. People still speak their native language with family and friends, and English is mainly used in professional and educational settings. The increasing influence of global media and entertainment has led some young people to adapt English phrase in casual speech, but full language mixing is not common. While some traditionalists worry about the cultural influences from English-speaking countries, most Spaniards view English as available to promote global communication and professional success rather than an threat to their linguistic and cultural identity.
Hello again, everyone. Now that Sarah Khadijah has completed her individual presentation, I start with the group presentation right away. Our topic today is about the pronunciation challenges in English faced by people in Pakistan and Spain. We will be comparing how their native languages influence pronunciation, the differences across generations, and how they use English in daily life. Let's start with the 6 questions. So, are there any specific English sounds that people in their country find difficult to pronounce? Why do they think these sounds are challenging? So, in both Pakistan and Spain, English learners face pronunciation challenges, but the reasons behind them are different. For the similarities, learners from both countries struggle with certain English sounds that don't exist in their native languages. For example, the th sound in words like this and think is difficult for both Spanish and Pakistani speakers. Many speakers replace it with a D or T sound. So instead of this, they might say this. For the differences in Pakistan, many struggle with V and W sounds because Urdu don't differentiate between them. For example, very may sound like very. However, in Spain, English H sounds are often silent because the letter H is not pronounced in Spanish, so words like hotel might sound like hotel. These differences happen because people tend to apply the pronunciation rules of their native language when speaking English. Moving on to regional accents and pronunciation differences in Pakistan and Spain. For the similarities, both countries have regional accents that affect how English is spoken. So in Pakistan, people from Punjab and Sindhi have distinct English accents influenced by their local languages, while in Spain, regions like Andalusia, Catalonia, and Galicia also have Spanish-influenced English pronunciation. Next is for the native languages influence pronunciation part. Pakistanis struggle with certain English sounds because Punjabi, Sindhi, and Pashto have different phonetic systems. Similarly, Spaniards may carry over features from Spanish dialects, such as dropping final consonants for Andalusian or even changing vowel sounds for Catalan and Galician. Next is being exposed to English helps create a more standard pronunciation. In urban areas, both Pakistanis and Spaniards are exposed to English media, education, and daily use, leading to clearer pronunciation. However, in rural areas where exposure to English is limited, people tend to have more noticeable regional variations. Moving on to the differences. Pakistan has stronger regional differences in English pronunciation. while in Spain, pronunciation is more standardized due to a consistent education system. Rural Pakistan has less exposure to English that leads to more variation, whereas in Spain, English learning is more uniform across regions. Moreover, in Pakistan, English pronunciation is heavily shaped by local languages, whereas in Spain, the influence of Spanish dialects is present but less pronounced. Overall, Spaniards tend to speak English in a more standardized way, whilst Pakistanis from different regions have more varied English accents. These differences show how language exposure and local dialects shaped English pronunciation in both countries. Next, are there any differences in the way different generations in their country to pronounce English words? Yes, there are differences in how older and younger generations pronounce English in both countries. For the similarities, older generations in both Pakistan and Spain tend to have a stronger accent when speaking English because they weren't exposed to it as much in school or media, while younger generations have better pronunciation because they learn English earlier and hear it more through music, movies, and even social media. So, for the differences in Pakistan, English is widely used in education and business, so many younger people speak it fluently. For the older generations, however, might struggle with pronunciation and prefer speaking in Urdu. And in Spain, younger people also have better pronunciation, but the accent of Spanish is still strong. Unlike Pakistan, English is not as commonly used in daily life, so even younger speakers may still struggle with pronunciation. Overall, exposure to English plays a huge role in how well different generations pronounce it. Moving on to the last one for my part. Do people in their country sometimes mix the pronunciation of English and their native language in the same sentence? Why do they think this happens? So, in both Pakistan and Spain, native languages influence how English is spoken, but the way people mix language differs. Similarly, native languages affect English pronunciation. Like in Spain, Spanish phonetics change how English words sound. For example, comfortable may be pronounced as comfortable, comfort. While in Pakistan, Urdu and regional languages shape English pronunciation and speaking style. Furthermore, English is common in professional and academic settings. In both countries, English terms like marketing, email, and startup are frequently used at work and in schools. Even if people don't mix full sentences, English words naturally blend into speech. Moving on to the differences. Pakistanis frequently code switching, while Spaniards keep language separate. Pakistanis tend to mix English with Urdu or regional languages in daily conversations. However, Spaniards usually speak one language at a time, whether it's Spanish, Catalan, or even English. Next, code switching is a cultural norm in Pakistan but rare in Spain. In Pakistan, switching between English and Urdu is natural, especially among students and professionals. But in Spain, code switching is less common, except for borrowing certain English words. In addition, English is more integrated into everyday speech in Pakistan. Since English is an official language in Pakistan, it is widely used in both formal and casual settings. While in Spain, English is mostly learned in school and fluency varies between individuals. So, in short, while both countries incorporate English into speech, Pakistanis mix it more naturally with their native languages, while Spaniards tend to keep them separate. So that's all for my part. Thank you for listening. Now I'll pass it to Sarah Khadijah for more information.
Now we will move to question 10, which is how does the intonation in English spoken in your country different from native English speaker? Let's compare to Pakistan and Spain. In terms of similarities, the first one is in both countries, native phonetics affect English pronunciation and intonation. For Spanish speakers, they often have a flatter intonation, while Pakistani speakers carry over stress and rhythm from their regional languages. Since English intonation varies by regions, in Spain, Andalusian speakers have a more melodic, fluid intonation, while Madrid speakers have a more neutral tone. But in Pakistan, Punjabi speakers tend to have a louder and more forceful intonation, while Pashto speakers have a smoother or more natural flow. Now let's get into the differences. Spanish speakers often misplace stress in English words like important instead of important. For Pakistani speakers, they may sound overly direct due to the stress pattern of their native language. How about the influence of British versus American English? While Spanish learners are exposed to both British and American English, but the influence is more mixed. For Pakistani English, there are more historical influence by British and English due to the colonial history. So what are the cultural attitudes toward the intonation? Spanish speakers generally focus on communication rather than mimicking native intonation. But for Pakistan, younger generation actively try to adapt British or American accents due to the social and professional advantages. Now we have done the comparison between Spain country and Pakistan. So what are the usage of English language for both countries? First of all, from the education perspective, English served as a key part of school curriculum in both countries, with increased teaching hours over the years. So some subjects like science and history are taught in English. Let's move on to the government and law perspective. While not being the main language, English is used for international communication and official purpose in Pakistan. While in Spain, Spanish and Catalan dominate the government affairs. Lastly, in terms of business and job, English is very essential for multinational companies, international trades, and tourism-related industries in both countries. Now we have reached the last part of our research. We can conclude that the expansion of English in Pakistan and Spain signified a profound transformation in education, professional development, and cultural exchange. In Pakistan, English served as a key to socio-economic mobility, deeply integrated into government, business, and academia. It is not merely a second language, but a crucial asset that distinguishes individuals in competitive fields. In Spain, English is increasingly embraced as a gateway for global opportunities. With education system incorporating it become more extensively, and younger generation adopting it through media and international interactions. While English fluency in both countries enhance access to information and cross-cultural communication, its role varies, being a marker of prestige in Pakistan and a practical necessity in Spain, evolving global presence. Despite its advantages, the growing influence of English also presents challenges. In Pakistan, fluency in English can create social division. In Pakistan, fluency in English can create social division, limiting opportunities for those with less exposure, particularly in rural areas. In Spain, while English is widely studied, it remains secondary to Spanish and Catalan, ensuring that national linguistic identity remains intact. However, rather than diminishing native languages, English shaping as a new multilingual landscape, it is fostering a generation that can navigate diverse linguistic and cultural contexts, positioning both countries to engage more effectively in an interconnected world. Thank you so much for staying with us to the end. That is the closing for our presentation in terms of English expansion in Spain and Pakistan. Thank you.